Hello everyone and welcome to this session of programming with Python. In this session we will see another concept of object-oriented programming, namely Python polymorphism. So let's look at the objectives of our session. We will start by understanding what do we mean by polymorphism, and afterward we will see the different way in which we implement it. So what do we mean by polymorphism? Polymorphism is the ability of an object to take many forms. So for example, if we have a method which gives us some kind of output, but every time output changes as we change the object we pass in it, then we say that it is an example of polymorphism. So in other words, it also refers to performing the same operation in multiple or different ways. So let's say the different techniques in which we implement polymorphism in Python. So there are basically four different techniques by which we apply polymorphism. These are basically polymorphism with built-in function, polymorphism with inheritance, polymorphism with classes, and polymorphism in function and object. Let's explore them one by one. The first technique we are going to discuss is polymorphism in built-in function. So suppose we have a built-in function, let's say len function. Now when len function is used with the string data type, it returns the number of characters within that string. But when the same len function is used with the list data type, it returns the number of items within that list. So the same len function is behaving differently as the data type it is implemented with changes. So we will say that this is a classic example of polymorphism with the built-in function. The second technique we are going to discuss is polymorphism with inheritance. Now polymorphism is often used with the inheritance. The same method defined in the parent class when defined in the child class will override the definition defined in its parent class counterpart. So let's head over to Python and understand this in detail. So if you remember our session of the inheritance, then there we discussed the concept of method overriding. So let's define a class called drinks, and it has a basic definition. Let's say it gives the temperature of that drink. So we will pass self in that function, and it print that the temperature is 25 degrees. Now let's create a child class. We will say, let's say, class T, and it basically has a temp class of temp function of self, and it basically print that the temperature is 50 degrees. We have to inherit the properties of drink class within this T class. So we will write drinks within the parentheses after T. Now this T class is inheriting the properties from the drinks class. Now let's instantiate object of this T class. So we will write T is equals to T, and now if we call the temp function, that is T dot temp, we will get an output that the temperature is 50 degrees. What is happening is that the temp function is defined in both of these classes, and despite T being the child class and inheriting the properties from the drink class, the output we are getting is of the function or the print or the function definition defined in the T class itself. So what is happening is that the function defined in the child class overrides the function defined in the parent class itself. So this is the way in which the same temp function is behaving differently as the object changes. So for example, if we change our object, let's say we write T is equals to drinks. So now we have instantiated an object of the drink class, and now if we call the same temp function again, we will get an output that the temperature is 25 degrees. This is happening because now this temp function is giving the definition defined in the drinks class. So this is how we define polymorphism with the inheritance. Now the another way we define or use the polymorphism is polymorphism with classes. The same method defined in different classes will behave differently according to their definition. This happens because Python first checks the class of the object and then its relevant method. So let's head over to Python and understand this in detail. So let's say if we remove all of this and again define two different classes, let's say same drinks in which we have a same function of temp in which basically gives us the temperature of our drink, that is the temp is 25 degrees. And let's say we define another class like tea, or let's say soup now, and there we define the same temp function, and it also gives us that the temp is, let's say, 50 degrees. Now we have defined two different classes, and those two different classes have the same function called temp function, which is giving different kinds of output. Now if we instantiate object from each of these classes, so let's say if we write d is equals to drinks and s is equals to soup, and now if we call the temp function from them, then we'll get that the temperature is 25 degrees and the temperature is 50 degrees. So what is happening is that the same temp function is giving two different kinds of output or two different definition, because they are linked with the different kind of object, and the classes which these objects belongs to has the different definition of the same function. So this is the way in which the same temp function is behaving differently because the object has changed. So this is an example in which the two different classes are showing the polymorphism in Python, because both of these classes have the same temp function, and that temp function is behaving differently. So the last method which we are going to explore is polymorphism with function and object. The same function would behave differently according to the type of our object. So for example, if I delete everything here and add another function, let's say define taste, basically gives us the taste of our drink. So let's say that the taste is sweet, but within the soup, if we define the same taste function, pass in the self, and it will print that the taste is salty. And now if we define a function outside both of these classes, so let me make another function called getInfo, which pass some kind of object, let's say obj, and it basically returns the taste and the temperature. Now if I define two different objects of two different classes, let's say s is equals to soup and b is equals to drinks, and now if I use getInfo function, which is defined outside of both of these classes, and pass in our object, that is s, then we get an object that the taste is salty. We get an output that the taste is salty and the temperature is 50 degrees. So what happened is that we have the same different functions in both of these classes, that is temp and taste. But if we change the object, that is s from d, and we will get an output that the taste is sweet and the temperature is 25 degrees. So our same different functions, even though they are called a function outside of our different classes, is giving us different output because the object which we are passing in this function changes. So this is an example of polymorphism in which a same function, when called with a different object belonging to different classes, will give us different kind of an output. So that's all for this session. In the next session we will see other different concept of Python programming. Thank you.